Well, happy Saturday, everyone. We're back to Saturday, uh, end of a work week, and time for another weekend. Or, God, I almost gave my old show name. Jackson Pigskins on Atlanta Sports Unlimited. I'm Tom Pollan, along with my co host, Wanda Weidman.
Hello.
We have a full show again for you today, as we always do. Uh, look at the postseason options for the that remain for the Atlanta Falcons, and really there aren't many left. They haven't left themselves many paths to this playoff for the playoffs this year. Plus, Wanda will have her fantasy playoff waiver wire
Yep.
for your first week of fantasy football playoffs. And Wanda and Nostradamus will have your picks. We'll give you the winners for week 14. So, got a lot to go. Pantera, yeah, he's right. Before we even went on the air, getting to the NFC South title, which NFC has, requires Tampa to lose to top 5 draft pick teams and Atlanta to sweep or win 3 to make the playoffs as 9-8 wild card at best. Well, we're going to go into that. A couple of weeks ago, when you were off, Wanda, we had a discussion about the Atlanta Falcons, talk turned to what it would take to win the NFC South. And I said 10 wins. I still stand by 10 wins because I think, and going to Pantera's point, yeah, it's going to be tougher for the Falcons, and the Buccaneers have a more favorable schedule to go to get those 10 wins. Let's see. It's been amazing since the Falcons beat the Cowboys in Week 9, went 6-3. There's so many. It was so easy to be optimistic then about the Falcons' playoff chances, and
Yeah. Very true.
excuse me, I'm sorry, but since then the Buccaneers have won 3 straight to go 7-6. And their final 4 games are at the Chargers, at Dallas, home against the Panthers, and Saints. So to make the playoffs, I believe the Buccaneers can get away with 1 loss in that span. But the Chargers are on a playoff hunt of their own. So, this isn't going to be an easy week for Tampa Bay because the Chargers are currently the 6th seed in the AFC. And it's going to be tough to hold on, but there isn't a lot of competition left in the AFC for their wild card spots. The Indianapolis Colts are 8th at 6-7. And the rest of the competition in the AFC is 8-5. So AFC teams are just playing for seeding, and the Chargers will be playing for seeding in the AFC. But how do you think, considering how the Falcons played the Chargers a couple of weeks ago, how are you looking at that Chargers-Bucs game?
The Chargers, but I honestly would probably favor the Chargers. Only the Chargers defense is much better, obviously, than the Bucs, and I think they're going to give Baker Mayfield a lot of trouble. I think it's going to be a lot easier when you're looking at the span of it and the way that even though the Bucs have won the last several games, Baker has been struggling a bit. So I think he's going to struggle even more against the Chargers. And I think the Chargers will win against Tampa. That's my assessment on it. And then looking at the way that Atlanta goes forward, I don't see, if you look at the remainder of the schedule, it looks, on paper, it looks like, the Falcons could, win them all, but I stop at the Commanders. Yes. I think the Commanders would absolutely obliterate the Falcons. But and then you look at, Panthers will be an easy team to beat. And then you've been looking at the way that Bryce Young has been playing and the way that they're turning things around a bit. Is that an easy win? The Giants, you could say you could probably beat the Giants because Giants don't have a quarterback. So I think there you can probably get it. The Raiders defense is basically just Max Crosby.
Yes.
So you don't have much there. And, and they've got Desmond Ridder as their quarterback. So they could probably win that if they don't, if Kirk Cousins can minimize the interceptions and get it together. I don't see them winning out the entire remainder of the season, but maybe 2 out of 4 or possibly 3 out of the 4. They probably win.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I was looking at it. As I say, I believe the Buccaneers can get away with 1 loss to get to that 10 wins.
Right.
Whether it's against the Chargers, but they finish off against the Dallas and then, at home against the Panthers and Saints. The Saints are just about finished with Derek Carr injured. The injured wrist. And again, to recap what the Falcons are looking at the Raiders, home versus the Giants, at Washington, and at home against the Panthers. And that was my look too, is the rough part of this is going to be week 17 against the Commanders.
Right.
After a 7-2 start, the Commanders had lost 3 straight heading into their bye, but headed into, God, I'm having problems today, Wanda. I don't know what's going on. I can't talk. They headed into their bye week with a dominant 42-19 victory over Tennessee.
Right.
Currently the final NFC seed. And they're going to need that game because of the way Seattle and Los Angeles, the way the NFC West is looking heading into the final weeks of the season, because it looks like, either Seattle or the Rams finish out as the NFC West champion, and the other team finishes as a wild card, as the number 7 seed in the NFC playoffs. So, and that's what the Falcons are up against. That's why the Falcons' wild card hopes, in my mind, are practically nil, because you have, you have to surpass 2 teams that are playing very good football right now and playing their best football in December, like most. So, but that's another reason why the Falcons have to take the NFC West. There is not a wild card scenario for the Falcons.
No, I don't think so. And then, the way that and if I had to choose between the Rams and the Seahawks, the way that the Rams are playing and putting together the team, the way that it's just playing out, even watching how they played against the 49ers.
Yes.
You could see that they're putting it together. I don't know what's going on with Cooper Kupp. He's just he's just not I don't know where he's at, but Puka Nakua is just even on a different level.
He is.
After his injury, he's come back even better.
Yep.
And then with their run game, they're doing, Williams is just phenomenal. So I don't the Seahawks with a couple of injuries that they're dealing with and the turnovers that Geno seems to have in certain aspects. I just see the Rams being the ones that, if anything, are the ones that are going to grab it, and they're going to make it much harder for the Falcons if the Falcons don't win out the remainder of the season.
Well, I was looking online during that or after the Rams beat the 49ers, and just fantasy managers having heart attacks. The fact that Kupp only got 3 targets and 0 fantasy points in the game.
0. Yeah. There have been several wide receivers this season that have gotten just 0 points and not expected from Cooper Kupp. And you're just kind of going, wow, what is going on? But yet Puka Nakua just went off the charts there over 100 yards. And if it weren't for, for those that had Cooper Kupp, they were excited. And a small, the small amount of, there weren't any touchdowns. So it wasn't like if you had, Stafford as your quarterback, he wasn't going to get you any points either. So, it's going down. I've seen quite a few games this season that have been real low scoring games, very few points, a lot of kicks.
Yes.
Seem to be the theme of this season. But looking at even the Rams upcoming schedule, if I can get my mouse here to do its thing, they've got upcoming games. So they're now at they're playing the Jets, which that one's going to be I can't see. I don't think that's going to be a wipeout game, but depending on how Rodgers plays, that whole situation there. If Sauce Gardner is playing, but then they play Arizona and then Seattle and close out. And I'm sorry, not them. I'm losing my focus here.
I think we're both doing pretty good today so far.
Seriously, it is like, what is the deal here?
Lost the capacity to talk and
and find out which games they're playing. So just seeing how they wind up. Arizona, and the last is Seattle. So they close out with Seattle at home. So I can, you've got a couple of games that could be telling. I think they can probably beat the Cardinals because you don't know which Kyler you're going to get.
The Cardinals have been a big disappointment to me this year. Because
I mean, you'll have some games where Kyler is fantastic and you're getting the ball out, and other times it's just like interceptions and there's no consistency there. And I just don't see that being as a definite win. But it can be. And I think the Rams can beat the Cardinals, and I think they're capable of beating the Seahawks, and they can beat the Jets, because if they can contain Rodgers is, can't run. He's not mobile like he used to be. So, if his targets don't get where they need to, and the Rams defense has been really picking it up quite a bit. They're getting in there. I think the Rams can definitely win out the rest of their games. So it's just a matter of who's going to take it. And I really think that the Rams have a big chance. I like the way that McVay has been calling the plays coming up, in the second half, and doing what they need to do, and Stafford's been trying to pick it up and get some plays going. But I just don't see how the Falcons can compete in that scenario in the way that Kirk Cousins has been playing. It's just not there. So then that kind of like brings to the question, what do they do next?
Right. And you brought it up, and both the Buccaneers and Falcons have to play this team in their final 4 stretch of games is the Carolina Panthers.
Right.
And, the Carolina Panthers are favored against the Dallas Cowboys this week. They are favored by 3. The first time they have been favored since 2021.
Yeah.
They have been solid underdogs every week since 2021. They are favored to beat Dallas this week, which is just, inconceivable. Inconceivable. Just inconceivable to me that they would be. But their 3 losses, they're on a 3-game losing streak, but those losses were to the Chiefs, Bucks, and Eagles. And they were within, a total of 12 points separated them in those 3 games. They were in position to win any of those 3, if not all.
Right. And it's not, and I think a huge factor is that they just don't have enough firepower. They don't have enough targets.
No.
There, when you're relying on just, one target as, Thielen as your only target, that is your go-to, that for sure. Tommy Tremble has been able to get some targets in the tight end position, and then your run game, which is not a huge factor for the Panthers. But Bryce Young has been playing football like someone who fell in love with the game again.
Yeah.
If you look at the way that he plays, every time he's got the smile on his face.
I know.
And he's just having fun.
Yes.
He knows it's like, they don't have the means of winning a winning season. He knows that. But he's got it in his head. I'm just going to have fun and love the game again and see what we can do, with this team to show that I can command the team. And he sure has been doing the job of commanding the team, getting his players behind him, and they're having fun.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, since he got that starting job back from Andy Dalton, who just cratered. That was,
do you think just him sitting in the sidelines and just watching Andy Dalton was what sparked it? Or do you think it was just a matter of him stepping out and just getting out of his head, needing that time away from the pocket and just being able to remind himself, he's a good player. He knows how to play the game and just have fun.
Yeah.
Where do you think like that goes with him?
I think the fact that, I'm looking back on it and say the benching was the best thing for him because, it did get him out of his head.
Yeah.
I think he was able to see that it's not all about him. He has to lead, but, he's not expected to single-handedly win games as the first overall draft pick.
Right.
That he could go back to doing just what he wants to do, what has been his joy, through college and become that player again. And it seems to have made a world of difference. He's just, and hey, Zozo, just walk right by the camera there. That's okay. But I agree with you. I think that gave him a chance to sit back and say, let's have fun with this.
Yeah.
And It is working for him in spades. It's just incredible watching him play quarterback anymore. And I think both Tampa and the Falcons have to be worried as hell about facing Carolina. Because this is not the same team that the Falcons beat earlier in the season and is not the same team that the Buccaneers, faced earlier in the season. faced during this last 3-game stretch. Carolina went into Tampa, and Carolina had them at home. I'm sorry, and almost beat them. They took them to overtime. So.
Yeah, and now the defenses are now looking at these teams are seeing that they can keep Cousins in the pocket because he can't get out, he can't run. So since he can't run, he's now in the pocket, and the percentage I remember reading it somewhere, and I can't remember now, but the percentage of the time he's being spent in the pocket and not moving out of the pocket is huge. And that is crippling his ability to get the ball out because the offense is caving in on him and he's getting sacked left and right. He's not getting the ball out quick enough. He's holding the ball too long. So it's like if they don't get the players out, he needs to get – if it's not working for him and he can't move and he's going to be contained in the pocket, then he needs to get the ball out quicker. To just get the short routes, the cross, the cross seams, and be able to just move the ball, several yards and just keep moving the ball that way. If that's the only way that he can do it, but he's waiting for that long ball, waiting to throw it to Mooney or to London, and then it gets him in a pickle, and he now can't run. I think he's still favoring the Achilles, and I think he's just not the same player that he was.
No.
So I think now that kind of brings us to, what are they going to do? I mean, is it time to bench him? Is it time to put Penix in? What are the Falcons having to do now if they've got to win the remainder of the season?
Well, to start with, I think one of the problems also with the Falcons is Kyle Pitts, just a complete failure of Kyle Pitts in this offense.
Yeah.
Which has cut off another maybe intermediate route option for Cousins in the pocket. But, you do make a great point, Wanda, and I want to, bring it up and emphasize it, is that Cousins doesn't have the long ball. And that's how he made his living in Minnesota and made a name for himself. And I think you're right. I think that's the thing that's missing from his game. He's not willing to be more of the game manager type quarterback.
Right.
And move the ball, in small bites down the field. He still wants to make that big play, and he doesn't have Jefferson, Justin Jefferson to make that big play for him. And
right.
It's a big difference because London doesn't have the speed. And Mooney, I don't think has ever been a big play receiver. He's more of an intermediate guy, and he's reliable. He'll get open. But, that's the thing is I think Cousins is getting frustrated with the receiving group. But as far as Penix, I mean, it's hard to say because we don't see him on the field in a win or lose situation. So do you bench a guy who has made the playoffs and, for even though he's had the, probably the worst rough patch of his career, do you bench him and go with the rookie and see if you can't pull something out with the rookie?
I just don't see how they do that, being that they are trying to at least get into the wild card, and they have to stay with Cousins. They have no choice in the matter at this point. I think because if you put in the rookie, you're taking a 50-50 shot in whether he's going to win you the games or because he doesn't have enough reps, he's going to tank the remainder of the games. And they, at this point they're fighting for that division spot. So, they have to play with Cousins, and Cousins either, he's going to have to get out of his head and start becoming that game manager. You've got so many games left. So just take what the defense gives you and get the ball out. And I mean, just, you're a professional. You've been doing this for a while. Do what you need to do to win the games, but stop trying to force the ball and stop trying to hold the ball to try to make the big plays. You got to manage the game and make sure that you can, because these, like we said earlier, these are teams they can beat. They can beat and win the games. Now, whether the defense comes through and does what they need to do to help them, that's another factor.
Right.
That we can't leave that out. That's another factor in the defense being able to, to stop the run, to be able to stop the big plays. But again, Cousins has to be able to manage the game enough to move the ball down the field and get some points on the board. So these next 3 games are critical for him to do that. If they're going to stick with Cousins. Now, if he doesn't win out and they lose this, they lose the chance of having a winning season. What do they do next year? They're going to have to go with the young man that they took in the first round.
You go with Penix. You have to.
They have to at this point, and then do what they need to, because I think Penix, is the time they drafted him, he was already 25. So he's got to be able to, to get the game going under him and see what he can do for the Falcons. And it's almost a broken record when it's somebody they get, big sign that's supposed to get the Falcons in the playoff run, and then they wind up going into the rookie situation, and now they're just chasing their tail at this point. We know there's numerous teams in the league that are in that position, but I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but if I were them, I'd stick with Cousins right now, finish off the season, and hopefully get into where at least you win that, the NFC West, and see what happens.
Well, for one thing I do want to bring up, though, it wasn't necessarily Cousins that lost the game for the Falcons last week. That fumbled kickoff return by Ray McLeod.
Oh, yeah.
Gave the Vikings a chance to put 2 quick touchdowns on the board.
Yeah.
And put the game out of reach real quickly in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So,
and then it became a tough comeback opportunity for Cousins. But, that's another thing. You can't afford mistakes on special teams or, special teams or defense in these final 4 games. And it's a tall order to ask the Falcons to cut out all of it. If you haven't done it to this point, cut down your mistakes and be a little more disciplined on defense, be a little more disciplined on special teams. Are you going to start doing that now in week 15? So it's
right. I mean, there's 2 teams, Raiders, Giants, winnable games. Games. They can win these games. And I think if the defense holds up, the offense can put points on the board. I see Mooney having a great day. If he gets them in the, throwing the 20 yards, go for the 20 yards.
Right.
They don't have to be 40-yard throws, 50, go for the 20. Using Mooney, use Drake London, even utilize Pitts, for crying out loud. Just up the seams with him. Would be wide open with the Raiders. It'd be perfect. It's a perfect scenario.
And that's the hell of it that I've had a problem with ever, for the entire year. the fact that they don't use Pitts down the seams. You know, you got this guy to be your big receiving tight end, and you don't use him down the seams.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I haven't gotten that ever since, his second season in the league. I didn't get that the way Arthur Smith used him, and I don't get it now the way Zach Robinson is using him.
Yeah, because he's perfect. Earlier in the season, there was a play where Robinson actually put Pitts up the seams, and it was a perfect play, perfect catch, not a problem. So It's like you just do that. Going for you've got the perfect scenario, the perfect storm in the next 2 games to utilize those three main players, using the run game as you can. Even using Ray McLeod, because he's good when he's in the slot. He's very good.
Yes.
Using those players in that way, these are winnable games. And I could see them winning this if they play their cards right, they get a rhythm going. I think they can stay consistent. They just have to get out of this funk quickly.
Yeah, that's it. And Marcel brings up a comment. It's only right Ritter puts us out of our misery. Guess what, fans? Desmond Ritter is going to be the quarterback for the Raiders Monday night against the Falcons. Does it get any better than this? I mean, the NFL gives us some strange scenarios during the season.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
I mean, at least, honestly, they've the Falcons, had defense had played with Ritter,
right,
knowing what his tells are, knowing what, how he throws and so on. So, being able to use that hopefully for their advantage, that they can get a couple of interceptions. I'm calling it right now that Jesse Bates is going to at least get one off of Ritter. Okay. I know for sure. Yeah, I'll call it right now. I'm going to say Jesse Bates gets one off of Ritter.
All right. Well, I don't know. D. Alford might be the weak link in the Falcons defense. So, did you see that play? D. Alford trying to cover Justin Jefferson. That was Major League Clown Show right there. And it might be the funniest play of the season. And Justin Jefferson's jogging down the field with his hand up in the air.
Are you trying to get it? What? It's just like,
And Alford is, I don't know what Alford was thinking, what he was doing, but my God, we need a comeback game from D. Alford.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be good. This would be the week to do it.
But Desmond Ritter, last year with the Falcons, Ritter was very good at throwing that line drive ball, throwing that dart, and hitting his wide receivers. Very accurate. And kind of knew what he was doing. The problem with Desmond Ritter is if he has to put any kind of touch on the ball, any arc, and try and get the ball, he can't get the ball downfield with any touch, and he can't get the ball to a receiver with any touch. And that's, what the Falcons are looking at on defense against the Raiders.
Yeah.
Trying to, making sure that if, forcing Ritter to throw a little bit deeper, forcing Ritter to put the ball in the air. You can beat, and I agree with you. I think Jesse Bates is lined up for an interception this week. If he stays with him right.
Yeah.
Marcel says, look like monsters tripped him up and took his talent. Oh, those turf monsters will get you every time, Marcel.
That was great.
Yeah, the turf monsters really, up in Minnesota, really did not do D. Alford any favors last week.
No favors.
So, but this is where we are with the Falcon season.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I could not see a scenario where the Falcons would have missed out on the playoffs this year. It just wasn't there for me.
Right.
And yeah, this is it.
On a fantasy standpoint, I'm playing my Falcon players. I'm playing Bijan and I'm playing Drake London because I'm expecting this to be a game that's going to get some points. It should be, if Cousins is on point and doing what he does and gets back on track, this would be the game to do it.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think all things point in that direction. The Raiders have one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
So, we'll keep our fingers crossed. The minute the Falcons lose, though, I think it definitely becomes the Michael Penix era in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they keep Kirk Cousins as a very expensive backup next season. I don't know what the salary implications are for next season. I'll look at that after the season's over.
I don't think Cousins will. I don't think Cousins would play as a backup.
No, don't.
No, I don't think he would.
Even after the dismal season he's had.
Yeah, he would find some other team that will take him and maybe on a 1-year prove it deal or whatever, but as a starter, just like they did Andy Dalton and so on. I just don't see him as a backup. I don't think he will play as a backup. Just like, these are guys. It's like I don't think they have like the same mentality as Flacco. So like, Flacco, he wasn't being asked to be a starter. And everywhere that he went, he would come in as a quarterback, as the backup. And yet he's played at a backup and he did fairly well for a few games. And then after that, it just kind of went downhill. So it's just depending on, where they're at. And I think Cousins is just too much of where he feels he's too good of a player to be a backup. Same with Rodgers. You will never see Rodgers as a backup.
No, you won't. No, you're right. So you're saying Kirk Cousins has a possibility to be the New York Jets quarterback next year?
Yeah. If Rodgers decides he's going to retire, probably. If there's a team that is going to be, he could wind up going to the Giants, and the Giants, as they look for a rookie quarterback because they had the opportunity to do this past draft. I think there was talk of it. They were looking to. Everyone thought they were going to actually move up to get Daniels, and then they chose not to.
Yeah,
and it was just like it was a shock. I think even Schoen's son, when they showed it on the Hard Knocks, and his son said, you need to draft Daniels. It's not that hard, Dad. Just draft him. His own son tells him this. It's not that hard, and yet don't. And look at their season. Just complete trash.
Their season is completely
it's over.
Apart. It's over.
So, now they passed on the best quarterback draft in a long time, passed up on it, and now they're going to have to see what comes up next season. Could be Shadir Sanders, could be, some other ones that come up. Sanders is the one that most people are, talking about, but there's a couple of other ones that may come in there. But, they don't know how that's going to go, but still, now you got to start over. So if Cousins doesn't stay in Atlanta, if they lose and they decide they're going to go with Penix, I don't see Cousins being the backup. He'll move on somewhere else where he can start off as a starter. And then if they have a rookie in, that rookie will come in after, with the understanding that the rookie is going to be, on the wings waiting, maybe sitting for a year. But in this case here, I just don't see him as a backup.
Well, you think Cousins goes into another situation where he's the starter over a first-year quarterback? Because that's kind of the situation he's been in this year. I don't think he's been completely happy.
I don't know. It all depends on what is available. So, depending on the team, if it's a team that is a want to win now and they've got the pieces and they need that quarterback, then he can be the starter depending on where it's at.
Yeah.
And then, they'll either wait for the following draft to get a quarterback, or, they're going to see what they're going to do. But it all depends on what some of these teams are going to be doing, who's out. You've got the Raiders that need a quarterback. You've got, the possibility with the Jets, depending on what Aaron Rodgers decides to do. So they would need one. The Giants need one. I'm trying to think of what other teams that are in that realm that are in need of a quarterback.
He can go to Cleveland. They would have the most expensive quarterback room in the NFL.
Right. Could you see Cousins in Cleveland? I just don't know. I don't know if that would even work.
He's spending half their salary cap on quarterbacks.
Exactly. Well, whatever they could, they have to get a cheap deal.
Right.
They're paying so much money, so much guaranteed money on Watson. They buried themselves. So.
Yeah. Well, the Falcons are going to be paying a large portion of Cousins' deal next year, no matter where he is. So, yeah,
that's true. So, anybody could take him. Look at Russell Wilson. Denver's were paying his price for him to play in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And revive his career, and he was doing pretty well.
Looking damn good in Pittsburgh, right? Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll see. We'll see how things play out this week, and how things end up going into week 16.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about the Falcons' possibilities, playoff possibilities still, or if we are speculating on the new Michael Penix era.
That's right.
Going forward. Let's head into Wanda's waiver wire. Let's see what you got for us for playoff fantasy playoff football.
Yeah, so there's some leagues that are in there. Most leagues are in playoffs. There are some that have maybe one more week and they'll be in playoffs. But this is where, you should already have your team set. You should have players that are benched. There's no more bye weeks. So this is the time to get it settled. Make sure that you have your backups. You're mainly now just replacing players that are injured and trying to see what you can do. So I've got in wide receivers. We've got several wide receivers that are injured or not playing. In some leagues, Jordan Addison is still available for Minnesota.
Wow.
And I think that's a great pick against the Bears. Last time the matchup earlier this year, a few weeks ago maybe, Addison put up 25.20 points against Chicago. So I think he's a good matchup because as they, they'll cover Jefferson, but Addison will be all over the place. So he's a good pickup. If he's already gone, pick up Adam Thielen from the Panthers. He's also available. He's been doing very well. And against Dallas, it's a good matchup. It's a good
Yep.
matchup. Pick him up. He'll get you some, at least 20 points for sure. And then for tight end, those are like really sketchy because a lot of the tight ends are either picked up already, but if you are in need of one because you've got one that might be injured, you can grab Conklin from the Jets. They have a good matchup against Jacksonville. So I'm pretty sure that Rodgers will be hitting up Conklin quite a bit if they want to get through and get some really good yardage. That's where he's going to go. So Conklin would be your pickup. Don't pick up Cole Kmet. I don't think you're going to get much out of him. He's just been non-existent for Chicago. I don't see them really utilizing him against Minnesota.
A couple of big drops too, which was really
it's very uncharacteristic. I think he's allowed all this stuff to get in his head, and he needs to get out of his head.
Yes.
I agree. Then the running back, I've been beating the door on this in getting backups for your main running backs. So if you have BJ Robinson, you need to have Tyler Algier on your bench. If you have Walker for the Seahawks, you need to have Charbonnet. So pick up Charbonnet if he's available because Walker is doubtful to play this week. And if he's doubtful, for sure, he'll probably be out. So you want to pick up Charbonnet. Charbonnet was fantastic last week. Picked up 25.5 points last week. So you need to pick him up against Green Bay. Green Bay does struggle with the run. So you can get some points off of Charbonnet. And I think that is most of the waiver wire pickups. Remember, when it comes to the quarterbacks, you should at least have a quarterback on hand. And one of my favorite things is when you're looking at, try to look ahead. So my advice to you is whatever you've got in your playoffs, whoever you're playing, look ahead, see who they're playing, who's on their bench, and go, okay, can the players I have match up with what the teams they're playing and what they have on their bench, and at least gives you an opportunity to do it. If you're like going to go for it all and grab players that are on the waiver wire, just look at the matchup. At least look at the matchup. See if they played that team earlier in the season and how they matched up in points, and then grab them off the waiver wire. So those are my tips for this week. I hope you guys do well in your playoffs in what you've got here, and I hope it's helpful for you.
It's great. Sounds like great advice as usual. And I wish everybody well in their playoffs. I hope you didn't have Cooper Kupp.
I did not, but I did have Jennings for San Francisco, who didn't get much for me. And I had Kittle as well, who didn't do much for me. So it was a bad matchup. Should have been good, but was pretty bad.
Yeah. Let's see. We got one more comment before we go into our picks. Marcella, again, think Crosby will do us like Watt did. Yeah, I think Crosby's going to have a big game. Crosby beats up just about anybody. He's tough to keep out of the backfield no matter who you are. And, yeah, he's going to enjoy that stationary target.
Oh, yeah.
I think Crosby has a good game against the Falcons. And that's something the Falcons are going to have to overcome to have a chance of beating Las Vegas coming up on Monday night.
Yeah.
Wanda, who you picks this week? Who you got?
Well, I have Miami against the Texans. And I have Miami by 3. I think it's going to be a good game. But Miami's now picking it up with Tyreek Hill. We saw some action from Tyreek last week. And Tua is getting his rhythm. They're getting their players out. It's Waddle is getting some catches, so it's looking like they're getting their juice going, and I think they can move the ball around against the Texans. Texans has been struggling a little bit. CJ Stroud has also been struggling a little bit. So this should be a pretty good game. I think it's going to be a tight game. So I'll say by 3. Tampa against the Chargers. That should be a good game as well. And I take the Chargers by 4.
Okay.
I think the Chargers are going to win it. Just the defense is going to be a lot of help for them. So I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Baker. I don't think Bucky Irving has been for the Buccaneers. He's been on limited. Didn't practice a couple of days. He's dealing with some type of injury, ankle, I think. So I'm not sure how that. So they're going to rely on Rashad White, and which means that the Chargers defense is very good against stopping the run. So that's all going to be on Baker to throw. And if they pressure Baker, then he's going to make a lot of mistakes. So I'm hoping by 4 here for the Chargers. And then to close out, I've got Minnesota against the Bears, Vikings by 13.
Ooh.
I don't think this is going to be the close game that they had last time. I think they just know that we've got too many injuries going, and the Vikings are pretty hot. They've already gone against us. They know what to look for. So I think they're gonna hurt the Bears, unfortunately.
All right. Well, that's what Wanda has for you. Nostradamus, after going 4 straight weeks of 3-0, I went 1-2 last week. Just did not have a good week. I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Raiders, which went well for me. But I also took Buffalo -3 against the Rams. Did not come out. And I took the Philadelphia Eagles. I really thought we're going to bury the Panthers. And, boy, the Panthers gave them a game. And that was my mistake. So, I said online during that Panthers-Eagles game that if the Panthers kept it close, I would never underestimate Bryce Young again and his team again. And I'm not going to underestimate them again. All right. That's a team that has definitely found something. Whatever help Dave Canellis has been to Bryce Young, it seems like whatever they've done is working. And this is a team that is finally on the rise, and a team that will not be looking for a quarterback in the 2025 NFL draft. Even though they will be in a position to take one, they won't be looking at that position.
Right.
Heading into week 15, Nostradamus predicts Washington Commanders favored by 7.5, which is usually a tough spread. You want to keep everything 7 and below. Your magic numbers are 3 and 7. But I think they cover the 7.5 against the Derek Carr-less New Orleans Saints, facing either Hayner or Spencer Rattler at quarterback. And, the Saints struggled 15 points per game the last time Carr was out. So, I'm looking for the Commanders to come back strong against New Orleans. Arizona Cardinals hosting the New England Patriots, favored by 6. The Cardinals have been playing very well against the lower teams in the NFL. It's when you get up to the intermediate and elite level that the Cardinals have been struggling. I do think at home, if this were New England, it'd be a lot more trouble. I think at home, they take this game favored by 6. And the New York Jets you know, I said, a few weeks ago that, the Jets were never going to touch my best bets again. And, I don't know. It just, the way this game matches up against Jacksonville, this should have been what Tennessee did last week. And I don't know what the hell happened. Why Tennessee and Will Levis did not take advantage of that terrible Jacksonville secondary. Just unbelievable to me. Because I expected Calvin Ridley to have a big game for Will Levis and Tennessee. And the offense just shot itself in the foot, and Jacksonville won the game.
Yeah.
I think the Jets do what the Titans failed to do.
Exactly.
They will get the ball through the air. Rodgers is not going to get caught up in whatever Levis got caught up in last week. And the Jets defense is also, while Tennessee defense is good, the Jets are better. So I'm looking at the Jets to defeat the Jaguars. The Jaguars had their big week last week in the AFC South. They lose this week, Jets -3. So those are my 3 picks for you this week. Looking to get back on track.
All right.
Still looking good for the season on my best bets. So take
it. Go.
And let's just get to Todd real quick. We got a couple more minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Falcons let Ritter light them up and we lose, how does this rank in low points of Falcon history? Wow.
Yeah, well.
It seems like there are Falcons fans who are just waiting for this team to let them down.
And I feel for him. I know how it feels. But yeah, I mean, until they see something happen and a turnaround, it would be the dagger that would put the end of the season if Ritter lights up the Falcons here. That would be it. And I get it. I totally would understand the Falcons just going, it's over.
Yeah. And I think it becomes a significant low point in this team's history because this is a team that looked like they would be challenging for the NFC West title this year.
Yeah.
And finally locked down another playoff spot. And I think it's going to be disheartening for a lot of Falcons fans, but I do think, the Falcons can look forward to, a promising young quarterback to lead them next season. So I think that kind of mitigates the disappointment a little bit because you know what you got on the bench. And right. I think if the Falcons finally draft an edge rusher, as I think I've been saying, Dave Holcomb before you, Wanda, we've been saying that constantly every off season.
Yep.
This team needs an edge rusher. Get one. Get somebody who can put offenses behind the chains because that is what this team is missing.
There's a lot of teams missing it.
Behind the chains.
Yep. It's going to be offensive line and defense through the draft, I believe, in the first round. Everyone's going to be hitting the trenches and trying to cover that because that's where a lot of teams are suffering. So I think that's where it's going to go. And I think that's where the Falcons need to start. Defense first, get that pass rusher, then continue on with the offensive line, get what you need to, and you've got a potential team to win the division next year.
Absolutely. And as the great builder himself, Jim Finks, who built the Vikings Super Bowl team, the Bears 85 Super Bowl team, and the Saints team that made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, you build from the inside out.
Yep.
And I think it's time for the Falcons to start doing that. And maybe maybe finishing with a disappointing end to this season gets them to see that you build from the inside out.
Yep.
One can only hope.
Yep.
Folks, it's been great to spend another Saturday with you, and we appreciate you spending an hour of your Saturday with us.
Absolutely.
And again, if you spend an hour with us during the week catching our replay, we appreciate that too. But for Wanda Weidman, this is Tom Pollins saying, have a great week, everyone.
Bye, guys.